Hi, this is Gloria, your life coach, and welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.
Hi, this is Ron Johnson, your life coach, leadership coach, motivation speaker, and health coach. And welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. And today we have an amazing guest. She was with us in our program with IPEC. If it wasn't for IPEC, we would not have met this wonderful person, amazing go-getter, and just full of perseverance. Erin, tell us about yourself. Who are you? Introduce. The mic's all yours.
Well, hello. I am Erin Ward, and I, like you said, was in the coaching with you guys. My coaching, kind of, and it's been my life work, my life process, but it's also the way I'll coach, and it is like based on resilience. But I am, I just turned 49, just had a birthday, which I absolutely celebrate and love. My day.
Happy birthday.
I know, thanks. Well, it was a couple months ago.
Happy birthday.
I'm making an obnoxious fool out of myself. I think we all should celebrate our birthdays, and here's one of those tangents I was talking about. But because birthdays are, what do we remember as kids on our birthdays, right? They're fun. They're celebratory. There's laughter. There's games. There's play. And so I've just decided as an adult that every day on my birthday, I'm going to celebrate every aspect of my day, not because there's anything fascinating happening, but because it's happening on my day. And then I started broadening out into half birthdays, which is the same thing. And that's just kind of my philosophy is that we should all play more. We should all laugh. We should all find our child in us. And soften out some of the more intense things that happen in our world. I'm living right now in Grass Valley, and I am a massage therapist. I am a yoga instructor, and I am mostly right now, I am a coach. And there is a beautiful poem that I will probably have attached to a lot of my coaching stuff. And it's actually just a segment of a poem. And it's by Mary Oliver. And the one sentence is, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" And that phrase has always stuck with me so much. What will we do with it? This is our one wild and precious life. How are we going to choose to live it?
I guess right then and there, most people know they have a life full of choices. And they don't know they have a choice to change or to make a change. And knowing you only have one life to live, why not do as much as you can, right?
Well, that's my fear. But I mean, kind of like you're saying, even if people, whether they know to change or not, I do believe that there's so much fear out there. And we all are seeing it everywhere. But, so many people, they base everything on fear. What if? What if this happens? What if this happens? You read the news, you look at media. We're inundated with fear. The world is surrounding us because if we don't, conform to this brand of toilet paper or, whatever, this president, this, then there's so much information out there that we should be afraid of it. And I think people avoid change out of fear. And so we do have the ability. Every one of us has the ability to choose something different. And my focus mostly is in attitude. And we can change the way we think. We can change our perspective. And that's also another sort of passion of mine is changing perspectives. Because once we've changed our perspective, changed the way you look at things, the things you look at will change, right? So I think we all can change. It's when we recognize we're ready, when we recognize we can. And those are the things that sort of get in people's way.
That's so true. I never forget this. I told a story before on another podcast. I remember when I was watching my dad passing away. He got 2007 had a stroke, and even though it took 8 years before he actually passed away, it's really ironic. 8 years goes by pretty fast, and the old saying is, when you go to the hospital and start cutting you open, you're not getting out, and that's what starts happening to people that all these kind of issues. So, anyways. He went to the hospital. He had a small blood clot in his leg. It traveled to his heart. They keep him in the hospital. Couldn't find he had an ulcer in the small intestine, and then they had to remove his small intestine. Also, remove his large intestine. So when I last saw him, he had no large intestine. A week or two later, after I saw him, they removed the small, but he had no quality of life. When they start operating on you like that, you already have high blood pressure. You're going through Alzheimer's, dementia, and all this. No quality of life. And I remember looking at him and shook his hand. And when I left the hospital, I said, Ron, if you do something different in your life, this will be you. Not saying the fact that, death's not part of life, but the fact that if you do the things you want to in your life, you always just be you. My dad would always say, son, I'm going to do X, Y, Z when I get old enough. And it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen when that time comes? You don't know. And here, what you're saying right now is if we're aware of a choice and able to change, we can change the way we look at, everything else. So that makes a big, big difference in people's outset of life. Like we learned in coaching, all of us have filters, and what we look at, if we only see, let's say, negative, everything around us be negative. If we see positive, everything around us be positive. And on top of that, you have a great awareness and choice. And, when I saw my dad, it's like, I don't want to live that life. And everything I've done now is to create the better life I want to, because now I know I have a choice.
Right. Because now you
It makes a
see
big,
just what's
big difference.
capable. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, go ahead, Gloria.
No, go ahead. But you finish first, and I'll ask you the question after.
Okay. I was just gonna touch on that a little bit about, so I have chronic pain. So I've, it started out as a triple jump injury in high school, but then I also had a lot of hypermobility in my joints, so hips and all of my spine joints. So when I got back-to-back pregnancies, it's like the elasticity of my joints just went out, and it never came back at all, even though it was kind of weak anyway. So basically my spine has been compressing since then. And so I've had, I think, 5 back surgeries now, and I've been in chronic pain, for 17 years. And it's something that's always there. I don't get away from it, but I have learned so many tools as far as meditating. There was some medication, but some meditating around just outside the pain. The pain is there and it can take over. And this can be applicable to anything in life, right? We have these pains and the focus takes over, as opposed to, okay, that pain is there, but I had to learn that, but if I put my focus elsewhere, then the pain is not so intense. It's still there, but I can get it to the back burner. So it's not my focus anymore. And it's sort of like, I have a choice in that. And I believe all of us do in kind of like what you were saying, Ron, is that we all do have a choice. But it takes work. And sometimes it seems the idea of a positive outcomes, I think, seems overwhelming for people at times.
Mm-hmm.
It does. A lot of people are not ready for. I guess it goes back to one thing: seeing is believing. So people can see it, like it's tangible. Like I can touch it, I can touch my keyboard, I can touch my monitor, I can touch my microphone. Oh, it's there.
Right.
But it's really hard people to transition to know you got to believe it in order to see it. That's the conundrum right there. A lot of people are stuck in, it has to be tangible. They have to see the end result or control the end result. And that what lies in a lot of frustration and stress is that I want to control all the outcomes. Well, what if you did control that outcome? It's not really what you wanted.
Yeah. I read this. I don't know if you guys have heard of, it's called the Desire Map. I can't remember the author. I wish I could, because I'm just really bad at names and stuff. But she did this. The whole work was like her and her husband, every year for New Year's Eve, they would set up just get a big poster board, and they divide it into 4 sections of the different areas of their lives. And they would set goals for the year. Like, okay, this is what we want to do together as a couple. This is business. This is, financial, health, whatever the categories are. And then they kept realizing that they would check this every year. And they're like, okay, we're meeting all of our goals. Why don't we feel better? Like, why aren't we happier? And what this kind of woman did is she ended up writing this book and creating a kind of a workshop around it about, instead of, like, we tend to chase our goals. We think that's going to bring us the emotion we want. And she shifted it down into identify what emotions you want to feel and lead with that. What's going to bring me, like I remember mine were joy, inspiration, authenticity, courage, and so you you do some work on narrowing it down, but then it's sort of like, then I can set my day as far as like, what's going to bring courage? What's going to make me feel courageous today? And then you start doing it that way, instead of setting goals that you don't know what the outcome is. You don't know when it's going to happen and you want it, but then it's sort of, again, you're chasing the goal as opposed to, or you're chasing the emotion. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. Erin, I have a question for you. So did you, speaking of goals, did you have or set any goals for your life? And did you have to go through any of those fears? And I know there's always going to be obstacles in life, and then the changes.
So is your question, can you say the question again one more time?
Did you have, in the past, before becoming a life coach and going through the training that we did,
Yes.
was there a goal that you wanted to achieve, or did you set a goal for yourself that you wanted to achieve before you discovered becoming a life coach?
Oh, okay. Well, I remember having a conversation with a kid in college, and he's like, Erin, everybody else seems to want something, to want to do something, to have something ever. He's like, you don't seem to want anything. And I was like, huh. I said, I don't see it that way. I said, I want to be happy. And that was that was how I set the stage. Life events turned into what they did, and I just think it's interesting that I was handed a lot of challenges as to, okay, where are you going to find joy in this one? It's a funny little test. But, because I did different things, I did a lot of sampling of different things. Like, I love body work. I mean, at my core, I'm a body worker. I love giving massage. I mean, when I give a massage, I feel like I've just had one, because it is such an enjoyable process for me. And, as far as a goal, not really. I didn't have any big headline thing. It was sort of like, okay, what will bring me joy? And I've been a little bit more focused on the now, and the present. And yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah.
And then,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Nah, just. Again,
Go ahead.
my brain's
Finish it.
just on fire right now.
No, that was it. I just wanted to know that if how about this? How and when did you realize, or at some point you wanted to, become a life coach? Where did that come about? Or how?
A lot of it, well, when I was living in North Carolina for a while, I was going through a difficult time, and I had actually joined this like women's kind of support group, and it was for professional women, or just, however you define professional. But it was just a support. It was really just a place where women would get together, and we'd have nice topics. And it was really just okay, everybody share an aha moment, or everybody share this is what's great. And it was just a room full of people supporting each other. And there was a ton of compassion, and just a ton of hey, I'm honoring you as a person. Right. And that was lovely. But in that, there was an iPad coach, and I actually did some work with her. So that is sort of what started it. And that was about 7 years ago. 6 years ago. And then, but I always kind of figured, I mean, I liked it. At one point I was going to go back to school and get my master's in social work, because I know that I'm a healer. You know, I know that I am here to help in whatever capacity for others. And, you know, the gifts along the way, you know, I have one autistic child and the other that was, you know, pretty emotionally challenging when he was younger. And I have been given the gift of patience beyond what I ever thought possible. And I'm an observer. You know, I like to observe people and I love to observe human behavior and how we interact and how people process information. And so I just, with my own work involved and with my, you know, the stuff that I've been doing for my own resilience and to keep myself as positive and whatever, that the coaching just seemed like a natural thing because I didn't want to do therapy, you know, and that's where it was kind of balancing between the two of, I don't really want to do therapy work with people. I want to grow with people. I want to facilitate somebody else's what's next. And yeah.
I like that. You want to grow with people. Sounds really good.
So before coaching all this, what was your dream in life? Like what did you fantasize about or being?
Being. It sounds kind of weird because I don't think I have what typical goals. I mean, honestly, I lost myself after I had children because they had so many needs. And I just put Erin on the shelf. And so having children with special, you know, additional needs, there's a ton of therapies. There was a ton of like learning different behaviors, learning how, you know, with my son who hardly speaks, it was learning to interpret the world to him and him to the world, because there isn't that communication. And so my goal was about helping my children live the most fulfilling and enjoyable lives that they could in whatever capacity that was going to look like. My whole focus was about, again, getting them all the services that I could get them, getting them all of the early intervention I could get them, and staying on it and staying on the schools and making sure they were, you know, kind of supporting my children the way they should be supporting them and all of it. That I just put myself on a shelf for the longest time. And it wasn't until about 2015 where I said, oh, wait a minute. There's no Erin anymore. You know, and I had to do a really deep investigation to find out where I'd gone and to find out how it had happened and this. And so honestly, my dream has always been, I mean, you know, I'd love to have the family. I would love to, you know, have a close relationship with my children. And, you know, I think we all start with these ideas and dreams. And then we realize along the way that like, oh, right. You know, there's a little bit of a grieving process that sort of has to happen because we obviously are not always handed what we think. You know, we create a story for ourselves, we create a dream. And, you know, yeah.
You know, and I understand that because a lot of the times when you have kids, you usually, well, you know, as a mother, and I can't say, you know, dad doesn't do the same thing. Any parents will do this. They'll always put their kids first. Their kids comes first, and they're always on the top of everything else.
Yeah.
Until one day, like what you said, then you realize, wait a minute, what about me?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a pretty, I mean, as far as from people I've talked to, it's a pretty common story, you know, with,
it is,
you know, and again, I mostly raise my children by myself. And yeah, there's no real time. And then it's sort of now I appreciate, but I do on some level, I appreciate all of my experiences, even the yucky ones, because I see how, oh, well, there was another way to do that. I didn't do it. And it's not about
Mhm.
regretting, because I don't regret anything. It's, I did the best I could with the information I had at the time. And I believe that in all of us. I don't really believe that we go out intentionally trying to harm others. But it happens,
Right.
right? Just all of our lack of communication abilities amongst ourselves. I'm surprised any of us can actually really communicate sometimes. But but yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know
Go
where I
ahead.
was. I lost myself. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You can continue.
I know, but I lost my place. So
Eh, and you know what? I also see that how, that was I can only imagine how tough that was for you raising both or two with disabilities, and how old are they now?
18 and 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Babies are
all
big,
those
tall,
years from
handsome
day
men.
one, see, and you have, yeah. So and like I said, I can only imagine from day one having to take care of both. Or actually, no, I can't even imagine how tough that would be and how you can really get lost
you
and
know,
lose Erin.
And here's the thing, it was tough and gorgeous at the same time. Like I never
Mm.
didn't appreciate what I was doing, if that makes sense. Like I knew how lucky I was to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew how lucky I was to be in a situation where that I had the means and the time availability to care for my children the way that they needed to be cared for. So, yes, I never slept. And yes, it was very stressful at times balancing, because the boys couldn't be more different and we're at each other quite a bit. Um, but honestly, the gift of being able to be present with them was far outweighs the struggles. But yes, I did put my actual person on hold.
Mhm. Yeah. And at that time when you did that, I'm sure that nothing came to mind about yourself first in the beginning until you said you recently realized, okay, what happened to Erin, right?
Right, right.
And when you realized that, did you have to make, and I think you did say that you had to make some changes and take some actions. And what
Yes.
was that like and where did you start?
Well, where I started, I was actually gone to, because, part of the tale here is that my ex husband had tremendous amount of money and legally took my children from me. And that there was so much in that. I mean, the stigma, who gets their kids taken from them? And it's like, and people just don't realize kind of what can happen, and how the courts and money can really make things head in a certain direction. And I was at the other
Mhm.
end of that. And unfortunately, I was in the darkest place. And for me, what I did was, I remember I had my rock bottom situation. But I was so happy to learn that my rock bottom was not suicide. I mean, I was dark, I was down, how could a mother not have her children? I mean, there was nothing in my world that could make sense of that. Um, so one night I'm like, okay, so my rock bottom, I have nothing left. I've got nothing else to offer. I learned that my rock bottom was, I either call my doctor and ask to get into the hospital, or do I just take myself? That was my question. And I sat with that question. Okay, which of the two? Because I'm basically, in my mind, I'm handing it over to somebody else. And so I was grateful to know that that was my rock bottom, that I give up, but I'm giving it to somebody else, you know? Um, and then I fell asleep and I woke up and I was like, all right, so now we know I don't want to end my life. So we got that cleared away. So now what do we do? Okay, what do you know? How do you find joy? I started inundating myself with joy. I got on happify.com so I'd get a positive message to me. I started a gratitude journal. I started on Facebook my 100 Days of Happy, where I had to take a picture and or a post every single day about something I'm happy about, because it was that fake it till you make it. And I was determined to bring joy back into my world. I was determined to inundate myself with joy to counter the other stuff. And that I figured the more I could, find this, this play, this laughter, all of these things that I know are my core person and who I am, just bringing that back up and bringing it back to okay, you're on the front burner now. The rest of the stuff is just going to sit in the back. It's there, it's happening, but where do I want my focus to be? So that has been so much of my healing. And then I keep practicing, like I took myself to Greece for a month, and I just stayed on a little tiny island and I wrote, because I really like to write, and that's just how I process information. So I did that. I went on some silent retreats through, meditation center that I'm affiliated with. I just kind of did all those things that helped me feel grounded and secure, and just started a new foundation for myself.
So I heard right here listening to you. So situation happened in your life where you're almost hit, let's say, rock bottom, not to commit suicide, but you got to do something for yourself to have self-care.
Yes.
What was that? What happened? I didn't hear much detail on that.
About needing to find self-care? Or
no, before that, before you hit rock, what was going through your life that you needed self-care? Like what was happening?
Oh, I was in court. I was in a child custody battle with my ex-husband, and it was about a 3-year process. The trial itself was 10 months. There was 18 days in court
oh my God.
And literally
Why
there's
so long?
I know. It was over a 10-month period, and like every time we'd go in, well, she keeps doing this, so we have to come back. So it was grueling. I don't talk well in front of usually more than one person. It's not my specialty. So being up on a court and then having someone so nasty and verbally just attack you, peppering you with questions, challenging you, criticizing you. I mean, my ex-husband was doing it at the same time. I was just daily throughout the day being beaten down and, shamed and insulted, and you're this is why you're this. And I mean, it was so horrible and I was numb. I didn't understand how any of it could happen. A lot of the stuff were happening. It was like, you got to be kidding, like that too. Like, oh my gosh. And then another day, that too. There was just so much. And again, between my pain and my focus was my kids, and I couldn't believe this whole situation was happening, that I just, it was challenging. So that's kind of where I ended up with rock bottom, is that because I'm like, you just took my life away from me. My whole life was focused on my children. And I was feeling, I couldn't imagine what they were going through. And that killed me, to think they have no idea and no real way of understanding what's happening, because there's no sense to it. There's no sense at all to it. So yeah, does that answer your question, Ron?
That does. And
Okay.
obviously you went through a very difficult battle. I mean, 18 days in court. I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, how you get that much time off work? And,
Exactly.
I'm assuming your ex had a lawyer and they were attacking you. You're by yourself. You had no backing to help you out.
Oh, I had a lawyer.
Obviously,
It just was not very effective at all. He was.
Oh, it wasn't effective. He's what I call is an empty suit. He just shows up in a good suit, but it's very empty.
I know, but he would also when I would go to the appointments with him, he would railroad me. Basically, I found myself like, he also spoke to me the same way my husband spoke to me, the way the attorney was speaking to me. I'm like, wow. It was just so interesting to me that like I kept bringing these harsh people and I'm like, I can't win here. Somebody be nice to me. I was just like, just somebody please be nice.
I'm thinking about the lawyer. I mean, you're paying him to represent you. Shouldn't he have your best interest?
Well, that's sort of how it's supposed to work, Ron. Yes.
I would think so, because I'm with the personal situation. I talked about this before my podcast. Is So mine wasn't like yours. Mine was more difficult. So in 2007, I got married to someone I shouldn't have gotten married to, and we were married for like 10 days. It was just a disaster. She was an
Oh.
older woman. She had 4 kids. She was going back and forth with the baby's daddy, kind of drama stuff. And so we filed for divorce, but it stayed on the docket for 13 years, meaning that we didn't do anything.
Right. You
That's
were
it.
legally
So
separated
uh,
or just
legally separated, but we didn't find a
okay.
process. I didn't follow
Yeah.
up. People
Yeah.
procrastinate. So
Yeah.
ended up happening is one day I said, you know what? COVID hit. I'm like, okay, I gotta do something. So I start calling lawyers, and some lawyers call up. Oh yeah, I want to have this case. Oh, before we can talk about your case, I need a $500 retainer.
Yep.
I'm like, no, next. So I finally found a lawyer in Pasadena, and I thought we had open and shut. We had no kids together. We have no assets together. We have nothing. We don't want anything. We just want to be done. And first of all, the case is 13 years old, so they have to file a stipulation, which is you have to pay the court $435. Say, hey, look, I made a mistake. Can you give me an extension? We get the extension. Then what happened is that some paperwork was denied. Then my lawyer had to find some kind of legal lingo .100FX whatever, and finally got passed. So finally, just 2 weeks ago, after 13 years, we finally submitted the judgment for dissolution of marriage, and I can't wait until it's done. But I can only imagine what you went through, and mine was just 13 years, and we were done. We just want to get out of here. And it seems to be that your husband definitely was some kind of correct me if I'm wrong. I do apologize. Was some kind of narcissist or sociopath?
Well, those are similar terms that I've chosen to use, but honestly, on a webcat, I am cautious about what I say about him because when I tell you everything is used against me, regardless of what I say. So I know, but yes, I would. Those are terms that have crossed my mind as well. And it's
No,
you
what you
can't.
can
There's no
plead the fifth.
reality there. There's no. The realities are so drastically different that it's hard to. There's no communication because it can't be. I mean, we communicate from 2 different planets. And so everything is, you said, no, I didn't say what. And then it's like literally nothing can be spoken, texted, emailed, anything without it being this huge thing. And so it's very challenging to work with an individual who favors only their way of thinking. There's a lot of rigidity in the thinking, and those are hard people for me to work with because there's an absolute and there is one way and that's it. So but
Okay.
congratulations
We'll
on
move to the
yours.
next thing.
Sorry.
Almost there. Almost
With
done.
yours?
I'm happy.
Good. Yeah. So you're
Yes,
just
almost
waiting
there.
for it to come through, right?
I'm waiting for some judge to just stamp the final approval and be done with it. That's what I'm
Okay.
waiting for right now.
Nice. Oh, good for you. I do remember the names. Like mine didn't end with the marriage ending, but but I remember that feeling like when it was like just take me. I mean, I still haven't changed my name. You'd think I'd at least have done that by now, but that's on the way. Gloria, are you realizing that I have 2 different last names?
Yes. I was like,
Now you know
oh, okay,
why.
that makes sense. That makes sense now.
Yes.
I do have a question. Did you when you said that you were so did you I guess I'm assuming that you felt defeated at some point in your
Mhm.
life then.
Absolutely. Lower than defeated, whatever that is. I was full blown victim. I was absolutely at again, like Ron said, I mean, I was rock bottom for me, like whatever that means. But it was my lowest. It was my lowest experience. And I think I think we all tend to think of some things as like rock bottom. It's like, oh, people who drink and they lose everything, or people choose to take their own life, whatever anybody's rock bottom is. But it's kind of like all of us, right? We each have our worst experience. And I've had people that have heard my story or some of my stories, And they're like, oh my God, I'd never be able to survive that. Like, I can't believe. And I'm like, yeah, but when you're challenged, it's amazing what we're capable of. It really, and again, that's why the resilience piece is so important to me, is because, and I've always loved that
You know what I
quote.
like?
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, go. You finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, the quote I like is, you get, I can't, again, I don't know who said it, but you get knocked down 7 times, you stand up 8. And I just kind
I
of
was
keep
just
holding
gonna
on to that.
say that.
Oh, were you? That's great.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Perfect.
Um, yeah. I was just going to say exactly the same thing, that what I like about, this or any challenges in life that you go through is that exactly what the quote said,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the sad part, I don't know if it's sad, but the only thing about it is that you don't realize that until actually after,
Oh, sure.
yeah, obviously when you're going through the process, it's not a great feeling.
Mm.
And it's almost like you're losing hope, you're feeling defeated, you just want to give up. But something there somehow keeps you going,
Mm-hmm.
and it's keeping you strong. But to me, whatever situation we've gone through in life and any obstacles or challenges, even for me, the way I look at myself now is I wouldn't have been where I am today. I wouldn't have been the strong minded person, woman that I am today had I not gone through any of those in my life. And I think, though I see you and the way I know you, I think that your experiences in life and that time of your life, you wouldn't be here speaking this way if had you not gone through that.
Absolutely. And in lies the gift of everything, right? The gift of our tragedies. It really is. It's like, okay, we all hit these blocks. We all stumble. And again, whatever your version of the worst thing that's ever happened to you, I mean, again, that is very valid, whatever it is. And there's always somebody's story that ours is worse than, or somebody's story that's worse than ours. It's not even a comparison. It's like, whatever your deal is, whatever your experience is, yeah, again, we're back to that choice thing.
Mm-hmm. It's
I choose
again,
to
you
stand
have
back
that
up.
choice.
I've chosen to stand back up each time. Because
Yeah.
sitting down is not an option.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had a weekend with 3 of my other girlfriends this past weekend. And one of the reasons why we did this is because, one, we haven't really hung out and seen each other in, how many months since the pandemic. But because, each one had been going through something in their lives currently, mostly just not being happy. But what we did something a little different besides having fun, was more like talking. And I called it like an intervention, right?
Mm.
And I heard everything from each one. And some may not have sounded great, and one may have gotten as far as, where she finally had to talk and let it out, and just kind of burst into tears.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that she needed to hear a lot of things from us, from her other friends, our opinion and what we think. And, but at the end of all of that, I think what they've learned is that, yes, I have a choice. I chose to be in this situation currently, and I've put myself in this situation. So I'm going to put up with it or sacrifice.
Mm. But they recognized that there was choice for
And
them.
right. But, it's not always where, if you're going through it, you're not always recognizing that until actually you either talk about it or you hear from others.
Okay. Yeah.
But in the meantime, if it's just you yourself, you're kind of not aware of it. Although it's there, you do kind of feel that, but you're not, I mean, you may be somewhat aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not really I guess, open or owning up to it. Maybe some, still kind of in denial about it until you finally just talk about it and then it comes out. And then hopefully that you do something about it, you know?
Yeah. And that's like, it's almost like bumping up against the walls of awareness, like, oh, I'm actually not alone. Everybody is sort of suffering in their own way or has their own story or whatever. But sometimes that's what it seems like people really respond to, because it's almost like, oh, we're looking in. They're telling a story that's going in. So now all of a sudden I'm doing it for myself. Oh yeah, I got some stuff too, don't I? And you're right that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people just aren't even aware of how much, or they shift it out of their focus and they march on to doing whatever, but that distracts from things that, may or may not be holding them back.
Did you feel at that time, a certain point or a certain time, that you felt like you will not be able to get out of that situation?
Um, I didn't, for the longest time, honestly, it's hard to explain how I felt, but I felt numb. But then once I kind of hit that place, I didn't think I wouldn't get out of it. I actually know, even like right after the trial, when everything just kind of came crashing down, I remember I couldn't do much, but all I did know was that someday this information is going to guide me in some other way. Like I will see the benefit in this situation at some point. I have no access to it right now, but I held on to this notion that I knew I would someday, because I believe that about the world. Like, we get handed stuff, and it's, in my belief system, I wouldn't have been handed something so challenging if I wasn't meant to revisit it, refocus, when I was on the other side, and use it to, again, kind of help others. I have this experience, so I feel like I'm in a position to be really compassionate for others that have had a similar position or experience.
Did you did you really feel that way, that you felt like something good will come out of that?
Yeah. I didn't feel it, but I knew it intellectually. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's sort of like
Was it some kind of intuition?
Yeah, I would say that. Or just, for me, it felt like a knowing. Like, I just knew it. Like, somebody cannot get handed the level of challenges that I was handed if there wasn't something positive that could be done with it. And so I knew I didn't have access to what it was that I would do yet. I didn't have it, like at one point I thought I'm like, maybe someday I'll end up in a courtroom and fight for, because nobody in the courtroom, nobody knows anything about disabilities and what it means in relationship to other people, and how my court situation was manipulated so much because the courts didn't know kind of how their decisions were affecting the children. And also just the things that were said, that it wasn't actually true, but there was nobody in there to fight it and say it wasn't true. And because, again, the courts don't know. And so all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe I'll be an advocate for the courts, or maybe I'll just be an advocate for parents. I mean, I knew at some point I was going to do something with it.
That's amazing. That's how you turn the difficult situation into a learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's how you transition. That's
it has
awesome.
to be.
Yeah.
Or otherwise you're just stuck with a terrible situation. It's like,
I'll call you stuck in a quagmire. You're just going round and round in circles, and you just can't get out of it. Like, your mind, you want to get out of it. You can, but it's just, it's like the old saying goes, God doesn't give us what we cannot handle.
Yeah.
So if you go into a difficult situation, it's something, the reason why you're going through it, either to teach you something or to prepare you for something in the future you just can't see, because we can't see the other side, right? We just know what's going on right now in front of us.
Yeah. There was it's funny you say that about God, because that was one of my hardest things, because I don't come from a religious background at all. And so I found myself very triggered by all the people that were supporting me saying that exact same thing. Like, I absolutely get the comment, but it was interesting how I was triggered by that so much, because I'm like, okay, I get it. And I knew what the lovely message and the what was being offered me, right? I knew it, but there was something that I just, for whatever reason, I got rubbed the wrong way with kind of things that are said that most people would say. And it was interesting because I did this. I went and I did a yoga teacher training. I spent a month at an ashram, a yoga ashram up here in Northern California. And there was this story that was told, and it was, the Swami was walking through the streets. There was big crowds around him. Everybody wants to, be near the Swami. And somebody came out of the audience and hit him on the head with like the back of an axe, and it hurt him. He was taken away to a jail cell. The Swami walked down. He wanted to see this man, and he prostrated to him. He put a garland of flowers around his neck, and he prostrated to him, honoring him. And he said, God came to me in the form of my attacker. And that phrase, when I heard it for the first time, was like that little note that it was like, it was that little piece that I needed to hear, that someday I would actually hold forgiveness for my ex-husband. Because it was, what was being taught to me? What lessons was I supposed to be learning, or can I learn based on my situation? Is that clear how I've connected that story? I don't know if it's making sense, but it's like, because
it makes sense.
Yeah. It's like, again, what can we learn from what we've done? What can we do with what's happened to us, I guess?
Have you forgiven him?
I have. His behaviors continue to drive me nuts, but I have forgiven his shortcomings. Let's put it that way. Because I don't want to carry him anymore. I can be mad and angry, and I do get angry at his behaviors because it does continue. But as far as him as a person, I see him as this traumatized 6-year-old child, because I know what he went through. And for me, that's how I can hold him in forgiveness. He did the best he could with what he had, whether it's, neurological wiring or whatever's going on in that kid's world. He did the best. He's doing all he's capable of. So again, how can I hold him to something else? It doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean I want to be around it, but I'm also not going to carry his stuff anymore.
That's really, really good. Awesome. You realize that carrying that weight or carrying that excess on your shoulders only prove to be more suffering for you than the other person.
Absolutely. Like that quote, holding a grudge is like letting somebody live rent free in your mind. I always like
right?
that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute.
I've heard that once, and I remember it now.
Yeah. Get out of there. You're not welcome there. That's my happy place.
How are things? How are things now with you? And in case of, I don't know. I think it's been a few years now since, right, with your ex-husband and
Mm-hmm.
and the kids. I know that you still have this great relationship with your kids, and that you continue to try your best and see when you can and as much as you do.
Yeah.
But
I try
because
to.
they're both with him in a different state.
Yeah. Well, the oldest actually moved, and he's closer now, and he's been, he's he's moved to Las Vegas now, of all places, and he's coming out to spend Thanksgiving with me, and he's been texting me and exchanging with me, and I think, I don't know if it's being away from his other living situation, but all of a sudden he's available for me, and I just celebrate every text he sends me. I celebrate every time he gets on FaceTime with me. He'll get on with he and his girlfriend, and we just chit chat and laugh and stuff. And then my younger one, I'm allotted my 15-minute phone call every night. And so I will sit on the phone with Maxie, and just so he knows I love him, so he knows I'm here still. And yeah, that's kind of how I handle it. Sometimes I cry off to the side by myself because I miss them so much, but for the most part, I celebrate the moments I have with them.
It's all about celebrating the little things, because What you're going through right now with the youngest one, only 15 minutes a night, that's detrimental for someone that loves their kids that much. But eventually that will change. It's a matter of time.
That
Eventually it will get better,
is
and
always the
eventually
possibility.
it will
Yes.
get better. Yeah, because there's a possibility.
It is a possibility. And,
Yeah.
Erin, the best way of putting that too is I like to think of it as something is better than nothing at all.
hmm Absolutely. It's sort of like savor what I do have.
Yes.
I've put this. I'm really big into visuals, and so lately I've put up this kind of sign for myself, and it just says, "What can I do for myself?" And "can" is capitalized and written bigger. What can I do? And I just put that question out. So I'm looking at it all the time. So it's not about the things I can't get done. It's not about this. It's what can I do? Like, what can I do right now? Or what comes next? What can I do? And so I just really I've been inundating myself with that lately. So I can talk to him for 15 minutes. I can do this. That's
Yeah.
what we call
It's
it.
just
Can
you
do
just kind of have to
attitude,
speed up
baby.
everything. Yeah, you just have to speed up everything when talking to him. Hi, how are you? How was your day?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, he doesn't really respond. So it's sort of like, what are you watching now? And then maybe I'll get a response. But, and then I have to pull out my arsenal of funny voices and whatever to see if I can get him to laugh and stuff. So yeah, when I'm with
Yeah.
Max, it's all about play. We laugh and giggle and, we play. So he's
If
an
you don't mind me
18-year-old, but like a
asking,
3-year-old. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. I'm unfamiliar with autism. So your youngest son has autism, correct?
Yes, he does.
And what type of autism is it? If you mind sharing.
Well, they call it a spectrum because there's so many aspects of autism, and again, the way people use autism, it's very vast, again, a spectrum. So my son is, I suppose you'd call him moderately autistic if you're kind of looking for a range. But again, that only says certain things because when you say moderate autistic, every child is different. Every person with autism is different. It just depends on how it shows up for them. Like, for a good example is my two sons. My older son had, when he was younger, he had a lot of spectrum like qualities things, and one of the main things in autism, or one of the key pieces of autism, is often the sensory system is heightened or lessened. And so, like Max, he is hypo visual, and so he craves visual stimulation. Like, he'll get right up to the TV, and we would play Wii Sports, and he would stand right in front of the big TV to watch the baseball being thrown right at him. Like, he loves the action. All of his toys are moving. They do some sort of movement where it's a marble run or the gears that kind of kids play with and stuff. So they're all visual stuff. My other son is hypervisual. He walks into a room and everything has the same value to him, or he used to when he was younger. So he would walk in a room, you wouldn't even see him looking, but he would tell me if there was something shifted or changed on the wall. And I didn't even see him look over there. But again, because everything holds the same value. And as far as they had different textures and tastes in their mouth and what they could handle. One of them wanted crunchy tortillas, the other one wanted really soft tortillas. The other one wanted, because what they eat can be different. They can get really irritated and very sensitive mouths. Is that making any sense? So Max communicates, but he communicates in, we kind of call it echolalia. Kind of the idea is that they sort of repeat what they hear. So Max will watch shows, like his little cartoons, like he loves Thomas the Train. He loves, Maya the Bee. He loves Dora the Explorer, and he'll watch all these shows and he gets little phrases from them. He uses the phrases appropriately sometimes. And so it's sort of like, oh, I know he got it from somewhere else, but he's able to use it applicably. But he doesn't respond to questions, very well. And it's funny with the whole, learning to ask open-ended questions with my child. Everything has been, you can give him a choice. Do you want this, or is it yes or no? And that is all the communication with him. Because, I say more, but when you're trying to get information from him, it has to be a choice or a yes or no.
Mm.
Mm. So you should learn how to navigate each of your children, see who learns the best or how they learn and
Yeah.
adapt to that change.
Yes.
Just
How they
it's two
learn.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, and how they receive information and how, like, and that was so much of growing up with my child. I mean, it was fascinating because it was a whole world I didn't know. It was a lot of reprogramming on my own part, how to be a parent, because this was different. It's like, okay, if Max decides he wants to lay down on the ground because he wants the visual angle of the brick on that wall from this thing, then all of a sudden he's stopped and he's laying down because he's checking out the visuals of what's in his environment. And so it's having a lot of patience and just watching and going, okay, we're doing that now. And, and just piecing together how he would communicate and what he would do with his actions and how he would communicate, so it was learning a whole different world, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the perspective.
Yes, there you go. And that's another thing. It's sort of like, I feel like as far as that whole perspective thing, it's like, okay, I've been looking at perspective differences for a really long time now.
Very, very different. Like what you said, so different, like a whole new different world. But you also had to learn two different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
They were
that was a lot of
totally,
work
totally
too.
different
Yeah.
children and totally different. Yeah.
Wow.
It was fascinating.
And everything
I bet.
happens for a reason, and it got you on your path you're on today.
Exactly.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
exactly. So you know what? As we get ready to end our podcast, Erin, I always like our guests to kind of end with something. So what I want you to do is kind of what was one kind of takeaway you would like all of our audiences or our guests to actually hear from you about life in general?
I guess what comes to mind is that sort of piece about choice and that our choice is under our control. I would love the world to, or the audience here. Hello, audience. I would love to see everybody finding the child in them, or at least the play in them, to balance. To me, it's such a gift to balance out the rest of what comes us in all the supposed tos in the world. And again, we are at choice. Our beliefs are at choice for us, and we can choose to think differently, and we can make different decisions. We get to do that.
I love that. And how are you today?
How am I
How are
today?
things with you today?
Lovely, actually. I was excited to do this today. I've been working on some of my own stuff. I'm sitting in a room, and 3 of my walls are windows. So I'm looking out. It's almost like I'm in a tree fort. So I am happiest in nature, and I am feeling just love and excitement and courage and inspiration. And I just, I get sometimes into these places where I am on top of the world. I really am. And when I sit and think about it, I really am on top of the world.
And yes, you are. And you know what? Just thinking of those kind of thoughts is what motivates you.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is, absolutely.
I'm happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh gosh, thanks. I cracked myself up with my birthday plugs. That was so funny.
Yes, and and I can hear the joy in your voice, the happiness where you are today and how you're feeling. You're a trooper.
I'm a trooper, man. Here's something else that I was just kind of thinking of that I had sort of written down, and it's we all have our individual limitations in areas of our lives, but the abilities we possess to celebrate what we do have are vast.
I like that. That's amazing. The possibilities are endless. The choices are vast. Why not live a better life?
That sounds great.
We do have the
Because they are
abilities
vast.
to
I mean,
celebrate.
possibilities.
Yeah.
We do every little thing. And actually, Gloria and I are doing a virtual seminar on in December on celebrating the small wins.
Oh, nice.
All of us looking for that big one, that big home run, that big thing that's going to happen, that big this. But no, it's really the small things that celebrate in the process to get to whatever you desire or want or are going in your life.
Yeah.
And even things that happen or things didn't go the way you expect them to go, it's still time to celebrate, because what if it did go that direction? Where would I be at? And with this direction, because I'm supposed to be here, not there.
Right.
And
Well, and
that's
that's back
celebrating
to the
another win.
what can you celebrate? Because there's always something, right?
Yeah.
So even if it's not
Sure
the
is.
end all story, but I love that. I love that. And that's how I think that's kind of has been my focus as well. It's like I celebrate each day. I make it a point to celebrate each day, and probably several times throughout the day. I automatically go to what I'm grateful for. I automatically go. It's becoming, the more practice I have at it, the more often I do it. And it's throughout my day. I'll just like, what can I celebrate right now? What can I look at? And it's literally as I'm like, oh, that tree's pretty. I mean, it can be that simple, whatever it is that brings you something to celebrate, I guess.
It really is. You can celebrate warm weather, cold weather. You can celebrate
Yep.
being a home family. Every little bit of life is a celebration, and how
Yeah.
you do, it makes a big deal. So,
Oh, that's great.
Erin, I want to say this. Thank you for stepping out your comfort zone and joining our podcast, Life's a Shuffle, because I know it was kind of one of those things where I got to do. I'm not for sure. It's the first time. I don't know it's going to go. My internet, but you did it. No internet trouble. It was
I know.
amazing, and we heard another person that has success despite adversity,
Mm-hmm.
despite where she came from. Erin, you are successful. You're wonderful. You're amazing. The possibilities are endless. They're vast, and you will explode on this planet Earth very shortly. So this is Ron Johnson, your life coach, leadership coach, and motivational speaker. Thank you for listening to the episode of Life's a Shuffle.
And Erin, again, thanks for joining us today. You are a wonderful, great woman. I'm so glad I met you and we've connected with you. Thank you for joining us today. And again, this is Gloria Life Coach, and thank you for listening to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.